Hello, abnormal family. I've got another encounter for you. This encounter is a gentleman that believes that he shot one of these werewolves. Now, he says he has trouble, and he is a Native American, calling them dogmen. As he says, dogmen has not been used that long, that it is a made up name. He says werewolf has been around longer, and some other words he believes are better suited for that. What do you all think? Do you think dogman is a good word, or what do you prefer to call them? Alright guys, let's get into this encounter. I was 19 years old, and I had just moved out of my parents' house and got a cheap apartment in West Virginia. And of course, I needed to find a job to pay for the apartment. I was unable to find a job as a security guard at the UPS shipping and storage. He was able to. That was a misprint. It was basically a big warehouse where the trucks would come and pick up the packages to make their deliveries. The warehouse sat on the edge of town right next to the woods. The pay was great. I was making over $20 an hour. Then one day my boss asked me if I would be willing to be the first one to work a night shift due to the fact that there was an attempted break-in the other night. I was skeptical about it at first, but then he mentioned it would mean an extra $5 an hour on my paycheck, so I decided I would do it. The first night, I met my boss outside the shipping facility at 7:30, right when I was starting to get dark. He handed me my keys to the building and told me that he had just put a shotgun in the security room for extra protection. And then it was just me all alone for the rest of the night. It was pretty quiet for most of the night, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't have to do much. I mainly just watched Netflix on my phone the whole night. Then at 5 o'clock in the morning my shift ended and I went home and slept the whole day. After that one night, well, I decided I really liked the night shift. 2 weeks later, I've done the same thing. Only this time I see something that changed my life forever. It was around midnight when I decided to take my lunch break, and then all of a sudden, I heard a car alarm go off. I jumped out of my chair. It had scared the crap out of me. I got up and I go out into the parking lot to investigate. I open the door and I see my car sitting there. The windshield, the driver's side window, had been broken and was extremely shattered. That made me really mad at first. Then all of a sudden something darts out from behind my car and runs into the woods so fast I could hardly see it run over to the woods. I shine my flashlight into the woods, and then the light falls onto this creature that was something unlike anything I had ever heard of. It was at least 7 or 8 feet tall, and it had no hair on its body. That's right, no hair. And its skin, it wasn't pink or white like a human's. It was somewhat of a dark purple. Its head was hunched over, and it had glowing red eyes and large teeth and claws on its arms. I stood there for about 4 seconds, I would guess, directly in the light, enough for me to get a good look at it, and then it started to run. I drew my Ruger 357 Magnum as fast as I could, and I fired blindly into the woods in the direction I saw the creature run. When the gun was empty, I ran back to the building and locked the door. I ran to the security room, and I was panicking, not knowing what I had just saw. I was terrified. I was wondering, what if it would come back or not? What if it did? And where did it go? And could it get inside where I'm at? And I don't think I even put my gun down the rest of that night. The next morning, my boss shows up and asks what happened to my car. I told him some kids had thrown rocks at it and ran into the woods before I could catch them. I didn't want him to think I was crazy, and I was making really good money. Thankfully, it was the weekend now, which gave me time to reflect on this, and it also gave me time to get my car fixed. I spent that weekend browsing the internet looking at all the type of weird creatures, and none of them looked like the creature. It wasn't a Bigfoot, it wasn't a werewolf, and it wasn't an alien. It was completely something else. When the weekend passed and it became time for me to go back to work again, I was somewhat scared and didn't want to go, and part of me was saying to quit my job, but instead I sucked it up and I went back to work, and I didn't see that creature again, at least while I was working, that is. Several months have passed by now, and it is now late fall. I haven't seen or heard of the creature since that one night, and I had somewhat forgotten about it and moved on. The deer season was going to become up, and I was excited to go deer hunting. It was my favorite time of the year. I asked my boss if I could hunt the woods that sit next to the shipping facility. I was happy when he said yes. It would mean I would have those woods all to myself, and the shipping facility sits on 30 acres of private land, most of which is woods. The week before the season came in, I put out 3 trail cameras, hoping to at least figure out where the deer were moving. 1 and 2 sat in a large flat area with trees, and I could see the distance of those 2 cameras were seeing most of the deer, and even I saw a giant black bear too. Camera 3 was in a spot where there was a lot of thick brush and trees, and I had hardly seen anything on that camera. I had talked to my boss, and he allowed me to take 2 weeks off to go hunting. On the first day of the season, I headed to the shipping facility where I parked my car and walked into the woods. I was sitting in a makeshift blind I built that oversaw a great distance of the woods. To me, it was the perfect spot. On the first day, I got lucky and was able to get a doe at about 50 yards. I had made a great shot on her with my Lee Enfield sporting rifle. The first week of the season was pretty good. I was able to kill another doe and even killed a large 10-point buck. I saw one on my camera. On the last day of the rifle season, I decided I would stay there from sunrise to sundown. It was quite most of the day. A couple of doe here and there, but nothing exciting. It was getting toward the end of the day, finally. I had about 40 minutes of sunlight left. Then all of a sudden I see something running through the woods. It was that black bear I had seen on my cameras. I quickly pull up my rifle and fire 2 shots at it. I didn't know if I had hit it or not. I waited for a little bit, and then I heard the bear do what is called the death moan. It's something that bears do when they're dying. I felt bad for it. I didn't want the animal to suffer, so I got up and tried to go find the blood trail. I found blood, and a lot of it, more than there should have been. I followed it for a while, and then it eventually led to the bear. But when I got there and I looked at the bear, something was wrong. It didn't have any bullet holes. There were claw marks all over the bear somewhere, and some were 3 inches deep cuts. It was horrifying. The inside to the bear was hanging out. I immediately knew what did this, and it was that same creature that I had saw months ago. Though I thought I was scared, and I had scared it off. Then I heard this horrible roar behind me. I turn around, and there is a creature about 20 yards away, standing in a little of the daylight that was left. It was staring right at me. I believe that creature recognized me from our last encounter. I raise my rifle to fire at it, and it jumps away behind the trees. It starts running from tree to tree, using it as cover, not giving me a clear shot. There was a little daylight left, and it was getting to the point where I could barely see. It's pretty far to walk back to the car. I put my headlamp on, and I fired another shot right next to the creature, hoping to scare it. Then I start running to the car. I can hear it running with me. It's keeping its distance, but it was toying with me. It was hunting me. I got to the point to where I can see the outdoor lights from the building. I thought for a second I was almost there, then I heard the creature running get closer. I quickly look behind me, and there is the creature right behind me, and it is about to catch up to me. Then I spin around and fire at the creature. It stops and touches its shoulder, where I hit it apparently, and then it roars at me, and then it runs away. I continue running to the shipping facility. I finally make it to the car, and then all of a sudden I hear another roar. This one is different, though. It's deeper. It's almost like a wail of pain, and I took some comfort knowing that the creature got hit and might possibly die from the gunshot. About a week later, I went back to those woods in the daytime to retrieve my trail cameras and to see if there was any sign of the creature there still. I checked for blood and the creature and possibly a body, but I never found either of those. And I checked where the carcass of the dead bear was, and it was completely gone. I grabbed all 3 of my trail cameras, and I headed home. When I got home, I checked the SD cards on the cameras. 1 and 2, there was the usual deer on them, but camera 3 had something else on it. And let me tell you, it was something I wish I'd never seen. It was the creature. I had never seen anything like this thing. So terrible looking, so evil looking, so mean looking, and it's like it was looking at the camera smiling, knowing that I was going to get the photo. My dad turned the photo over to Fish and Game to examine. We haven't heard anything back from them, but we are calling every day, checking to see how far they are on analyzing the photo. As soon as I find out, I will let you know, Mike, what they tell us. Ever since that one night, I quit working at the night shift at the UPS shipping facility and decided I was better off to work the days, so I was moved to day shift. I will always wonder what I ran into in those woods, and I hope someday to know. Hopefully the Department of Wildlife will get back to us and give us some kind of an idea of what this creature is, standing bipedally, no hair, looks like a human with a snout and purple skin. I have no idea what this is, but I hope to soon know. Thank you for sharing my encounter. Well, I can tell you right now that if you didn't back up that photograph, you're probably never going to know, because it's probably going to get lost. So you probably lost that photograph. They're probably going to tell you that it's lost and it was a bear or something. Again, hitting it in the shoulder is probably what saved your life. I'm sure it went through a lot of agony. It probably used the bear to eat while it was healing, because it had already killed the bear, so it did have a food source, and I'm sure that it probably did survive from a shot to the shoulder. I do believe that the werewolves, dogmen, upright canines, whatever you want to call them, I believe they are more of a pack animal, and I believe they do live in groups, so it probably had others there to help take care of it, and I'm pretty sure, and I feel in my heart, that it probably did survive. If I were you, I would not return to those woods, because now you will for sure be hunted. I have a feeling if you go there that you're going to have a really bad accident, if you get what I'm saying. So I would stay away from those woods if I were you, and any woods that even connect to it. You're going to be a pretty hunted person right now, and that's just from experiences I know from. I shot something one night, and I shot it in the cattails, and it fell. Me and my cousin seen it fall, and when it ran off, it was limping, and it left the dark colored blood, the arterial blood that you would see in a gunshot or a deep cut. It did limp when it ran off. Something ran off with it over its back that was even larger than it, so I'm pretty sure that it was a juvenile that we had shot. After we had killed it that night, though, it did come back and seek revenge on other animals at the farm. It had never done that before. So they are vengeful, and I believe that they will avenge their pack mate, or their loved one, if you will. So I think you have to be very careful whenever you hunt these things, because they don't forget you. Trust me, they still know my mom. From her being a little girl to having that first encounter with that werewolf-looking thing, till now, when she goes fishing, it still remembers her, and it still makes the same noises to this day that it made to her back when she was a child. So what does that tell you? Guys, I hope you enjoyed this encounter, and until next time, keep your head on a swivel, don't be something's dinner, and we'll see you on the next one.